Thank you, Josh and Paul. And may I just say, I think you know that when it comes to this area of the city in particular, that Councillor Paula Fletcher has been a long-time advocate, as she mentioned, for doing things that just make sense. And one of them is to make a greater use of the rail lines that run through the city and that previous to now have been just carrying people by and large from out of town, as it were, from the 905. And we welcome them in here to work and shop and do all kinds of things every day. But we need to have more transit options for people inside the city that take advantage of those very same assets. And thanks to the partnership with the province of Ontario and their RER upgrading of the GO Transit system, we are able to partner with them and invest in building stations at places like Gerrard and Carlisle, which are happening because of the Smart Track initiative and at the initiative of the City of Toronto in partnership with the province. And there's been nobody more supportive of that than Councillor Paula Fletcher and, of course, Josh Cole, who has been a crusader for transit and a very effective head of the TTC. And I think the most important message this morning is there's really two things. Number one, this area of town will become, because of the two initiatives in particular, Smart Track and the Relief Line, one of the best served areas of the city. There will be a transit hub right near where we're standing that will serve people and allow them all kinds of flexibility. We met people yesterday when I was out meeting people talking about transit. When they hear about the idea of a Smart Track station here, which is the subject of a public meeting tonight, they are thrilled. There was a man who comes down every day to work here at Gerrard and Carlisle from Scarborough, and I said to him, you'll be able to get on a train in Scarborough and ride right here and get off. And he was thrilled with that compared to the commute that he has today. And I think that that kind of increased service to an important part of the downtown, which will also provide some degree of relief for the Yonge Street subway, I think is very important indeed. And the second point to make today is simply to underline the determination that we have. And I think I'll speak on behalf of all three of us standing here and hopefully many more, but certainly myself as mayor. My determination to proceed with these transit plans and not just have them as plans, but have them as things that are actually getting done during the time that I'm privileged to serve as mayor is absolute. And last night, people asked me in the media after the first public meeting in Scarborough, well, does it mean all the decisions are made? And I said, no, we're having the meetings to discuss the concerns people have about the stations and how they're put together and exactly where they are in the context of busy intersections and so on, but that the decisions that have been made are to proceed with these transit projects. We have made those decisions sometimes more than once. And my determination to proceed with those is absolute because, as Councillor Cole said, we can't afford to keep going on making decisions and then studying them and reconsidering them and redeciding them. We have to move ahead and get this transit built. And we have to take full advantage of all the assets we have, including the assets that previously have been used mostly to ferry people from the 905 through this part of the city and to downtown, and that's fine. We'll continue with that. We've made some progress on the fares so that people can be encouraged to use all of the transit options without disadvantaging themselves, and we have more progress to make on that. And I would just say to you, having been out this morning in different coffee shops and places talking to people, there's great enthusiasm for these transit projects. People want us to get on with them. And that is my determination to make sure that we create here a super station for transit that will have coming together in one place the Relief Line, other transit lines you see that already serve this area on the streetcar tracks and so on, and also the Smart Track. And it's going to connect people to jobs and to opportunity. It's going to give people choice and convenience, and that is what we're trying to do without taking an undue length of time to do that. I would now like to switch, if I can, and just give you a few comments on the report on the Bloor Street Bike Lanes pilot project. I've had a chance to review the report before I came out this morning, and I will just say to you that I haven't had a chance to review every single detail, but I have had a chance to read through it. I have said from the beginning that we were going to measure this pilot project very well and let the data be our guide. This morning's report, to quote the city officials in the report itself, is, and I quote, the most comprehensive evaluation undertaken for a cycling project in the City of Toronto, close quote. It's been measured, including with the latest GPS and other technology, and then it's been measured again. It's been measured and measured. And the data shows that Bloor Street is the second busiest bike route in the city, second only to Richmond and Adelaide, with Bloor having more than 5,000 cyclists using the route each day. It shows that cyclist volume on on Bloor have increased by 50%. It shows that the road is safer for cyclists. This was a key reason to examine the impact of safe, separated bike lanes as car-bike collisions were numerous. And people sense, as a result of some of the data that you'll find in the report, both car drivers and cyclists, that things are much safer with these bike lanes in place during the pilot project. An early increase in car travel times from Bay to Ossington has been greatly reduced by changes to the traffic signal that were made after the first wave of measurement and continued improvements to the street design, and the report says that further changes can be made to traffic signal design, turn lane design and other road features to continue this improving trend. Overall traffic volumes on Bloor and nearby streets have remained stable. And for the first time, the City of Toronto, in trying to measure the impact on business, partnered with Monera Solutions to get real-time and historic point-of-sale transaction data direct from credit card and debit card machines in businesses in this area and outside, so that you could measure both what's going on in this area and compare it to areas outside of the pilot project. That data shows there has been very little impact on business overall in this vibrant part of our downtown core as compared with the rest of the city and as compared with previous times before the pilot project. During the time of the pilot project, businesses have experienced some practical issues, especially with loading and deliveries. Some of these issues were actively addressed and successfully addressed during the pilot, with broader implementation of these fixes possible for other businesses and institutions located in the area that has been the subject of the pilot project. Public opinion surveys, where we've also been measuring, also show increased levels of comfort and safety for both drivers and cyclists, and they show widespread support from those who live in and travel in the pilot area. To me, all of these data points, weighed together, indicate that the Bloor bike lanes have had a positive impact. And so I will support the staff recommendation to keep the bike lanes, with continued improvements to be made to safety, street design, and practical improvements for local businesses. The staff report identifies a number of modifications which can be made to the bike lanes, to signal timing, to road design, and to curbside access along the corridor for businesses to improve this experience further for drivers, for businesses, for cyclists, and for pedestrians, with the number one concern that we have to continue to address is to make it safer and safer and safer for everybody. And I will be making sure, as my role both as mayor and as a member of council, that those changes are made as part of what we do going forward. Since taking office, I've been very clear that we have to improve the way people move around the city, be it by transit, on foot, by bike, or by car. And this involves taking a balanced 21st century look at the changing ways people are getting around, with a goal of making sure that they can do it safely, first and foremost, and a way which respects the relative needs of all users. The Bloor bike lanes were identified as a major corridor in our council-approved 10-year cycling plan, which is also focused on connecting gaps in our cycling network. And so now the pilot project is complete. There is a recommendation to take it forward and make it permanent with continuing improvements in how it is actually operated and how it is configured. And our transportation department will, after working on those things in 2018, assuming approval by the committee and by council, will be focusing their efforts on making sure that we continue to build out that network as per the 10-year cycling plan. And this will mean a focus on filling in the gaps in our existing system in 2018, and a similar keen focus on responsibly investing millions of dollars in federal funds and some of our own funds in the cycling infrastructure, upgrading it and improving it. It is a major challenge in front of us. It's a nice problem to have, but we have millions of dollars of federal money that has deadlines on times by which it must be invested, and we're going to have to work hard in order to make sure we can put that money to work upgrading our cycling network. I look forward to seeing the deputations that are made at the committee, to listening to them, to addressing actively the concerns of the people that have been identified, whether it be business or cyclists or drivers or pedestrians, and to making improvements to this. But I also look forward to supporting the main staff recommendation at Council and to supporting the motions that ensure that these changes will be done in a way that benefit businesses, cyclists, pedestrians, and drivers. So on that, I'm happy to answer your questions, as are my colleagues, I'm sure, on Smart Track and on transit and the initiatives we're undertaking, including the public meeting tonight and last night's public meeting, or on the cycle issue.
Mayor Tory, several business people went on the record saying that the bike lanes have actually caused a decrease in their business. Given all the pressures that small businesses are the moment. Are you not at all concerned that perhaps this would be true for other businesses, that you could lose activity on that aspect of Bloor Street?
I visited the site of the pilot project 5 times myself personally and spent all of my time. Of course, I talked to people on the sidewalk and in coffee shops, but I spent the majority of my time on those 5 visits talking to business people. And I'm convinced that with continued practical changes to the way those bike lanes are operated going forward, and there's some of the changes that I made allusion to with street design and with curbside access and deliveries and so on, that we can make this a positive experience over time as we continue to make the improvements for businesses. Because obviously I'm very anxious, as are all the members of council, I'm sure, to make sure that that section of Bloor Street and all of the city remain a vibrant home for small business. So I think we can make the changes that will take account of a changing city and how people get around, but also make sure that businesses are accommodated.
All of those businesses, though, that complain that their foot traffic is down, that their customers are complaining about parking. I know you had those statistics from the mayors, but I mean, are you saying that those business owners aren't telling the truth about their revenue? Not at all. Again, I've been out there and found input of all kinds from people about the impact on business. I will say the majority of people I talked to said it was neutral or positive. There was a group that said it was negative. And I think that what we have to do is work with those people going forward to make all the improvements we can to curbside access, to deliveries, to parking and other things that they identified. But at the same time, we have to take account of what is the best thing in the overall public interest to do, keeping business alive and vibrant, making sure we provide options for people to get around the city in the way that is consistent with 21st century practice, and making sure that everything is safe, most importantly for everybody, cyclists, pedestrians, drivers, and keeping the city moving. And so I'm optimistic we can do that. I will say about the Moneris data simply this. The Moneris data doesn't distinguish between one business and another. It takes a look at a large number, not every business, but it takes a look at a large number of businesses that are part of their system, and it shows overall that there has been very little impact, positive or negative, as a result of the pilot project and measured against other areas of the city. And so I take that as an indication that there are ways we can take the circumstances for those businesses that are hurting and help them and do a better job on these bike lanes, which is what I said I'm committed to doing. Where's all that traffic on that is being diverted from Bloor Street? Because the vehicle traffic is down. Where is that all going? Is it going on the side streets? I hope some of it is people who decided that the best thing they should do over the long term, not because of bike lanes, but just because it is the way in which we're trying to encourage people to live in a big, complicated, growing city, is to take public transit or to cycle or to walk. But having said that, I'm sure some of it has ended up on other streets. And you can see from some of the traffic counts in the reports, there are some indications as to where the traffic has gone. But to me, the really good indication that I think allows us to achieve this balanced result that takes account of all the needs of all the people who are trying to get around the city is the fact that we took some delay in car travel time that was bigger at the beginning, and by changes we made to traffic signal timing, to intersection configuration, turning lanes and so on, we substantially reduced that. And I think we can make further progress on that while at the same time having safe, separated bike lanes for those who cycle, who of course are in the thousands every day.
Mayor Tory, this will probably start, we already know that there's some councillors now saying, well, let's look at the day before. This success of this pilot, I'm sure, is going to have other councillors saying, well, what about here, what about there? But although those cost money and we're heading into a tight budget season, is the federal government going to come through, or where are we going to get the money to build the bike lanes that the city seems to be demanding?
Well, first of all, I would take note of the fact that the 10-year cycling plan had a budget of $500 million, I think thereabouts. So it's a very substantial sum of money, which we are investing every year. And the federal money came on top of that, and it came with a deadline to invest it. And I will just say for 2018, to answer the first part of your question, we are going to be focused in 2018 on filling in the gaps, which the cycling community have told me is one of the key priorities. It's gaps that exist where literally there will be blocks of geography where there is not a bike lane between two places that have them. And we'll be working on getting that federal money properly invested within the deadline, because I think the taxpayers would be very rightly critical of me and the citizens of Toronto if we and the council left on the table money that has been allocated by the federal government to improve our cycling infrastructure. So that will be the exclusive focus in 2018, which will be filling in the gaps and investing the federal money, and I think that will make a positive difference for cyclists and everybody else in the City of Toronto.